Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov Chess channel and welcome to another brilliant gameplay by the latest version of Stockfish, the powerful Stockfish 16. Today we see the fish battling it out against another top engine Altair in a crazy English opening, but today I think we'll see a more strategic Stockfish. Usually it's of course a tactical beast, it's a tactical monster that destroys its opponent with really brilliant tactical sequences, but I think today we'll see more of a human-like game in which Stockfish will show us great positional ideas like pawn breakthroughs, really pawn central control, reposition of minor pieces, defensive ideas, how to block opponent pawn storms and similar stuff. So we'll see many beautiful strategic elements. So put your seatbelts on and enjoy in a beautiful game again by Stockfish 16. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. The fish opened here with the move c4, the English opening. We have now the king's English with the move e5, g3. We have bishop to c5, knight to c3, d6, bishop to g2, knight to c6, knight to f3, so pretty standard stuff in the English opening. Knight to f6, kingside castling, also now e3. Here the fish is preparing the central breakthrough with the move d4, or maybe playing a more flexible line with the move d3. We have bishop to f5 by Altair, also developing the bishop on a good score, and now Stockfish decides to go into a more positional line with the move d3. You could of course play d4. Seems tempting, but after bishop to b3, bishop to b6, b3, rook to e8, black is pretty solid. Has also maybe some opportunities later to occupy the center with the move e4, so that's why Stockfish keeps first of all the e4 square protected, is not allowing some dangerous stuff by black here in the center of the board. So we have now queen to c8. Altair is of course trying to play bishop to h3 to trade off the light square bishop, because of course the light square bishop of white is simply the best minor piece on the board. But Stockfish continues with knight to h4, is saying okay, you could maybe try bishop to h3, but in some lines you could have then an f5 weakness after something like e4, knight to f5. The queen could come into the game, so Stockfish is saying okay, you can trade it off, but then afterwards I will attack simply your light squares on the king side. So that's why Altair tried this idea. Bishop to g4 provoked now a strategic weakness here in white's position. Now the weak pawn on e3 is really obvious, so here with this idea Altair also provoked many positional problems now in Stockfish position. We have bishop to e6, now we have f4, and what should you do? If you played again bishop to g4 to attack the queen, then queen to c2, you could maybe invite your opponent's knight into the game, but now after queen to d2 I think white will solve all of the positional problems. You kick away the knight, you play f5. As I said, you could be vulnerable here, I think, a little bit around the square f5. So that's why from f4 Altair tried knight to g4, hit simply the weak pawn on e3. Stockfish continues with queen to e2 protected of course, and now Altair tries knight to h6. You could try here e takes f4, but after g takes f4, after rook to e8, maybe attacking the queen indirectly and also the pawn on e3. Again, this idea f5 is coming. I think you could maybe try bishop to c4. Here the knight is of course hanging. You try maybe something like this, but it's simply not enough. You lost simply too much material, and again the game would be over here for black. So that's why after queen to e2 you have to now get your knight out, because f5 is the huge threat. So here Stockfish continues with knight to e4, simply attacks now the bishop, and now after move bishop to b6, I would dare to say now the real fun starts. Maybe if you like, just for fun, pause the video and try to see now the most progressive plan here for white. It's not so easy to see. It's very aggressive. It's very hard, I think, to play chess like this. Maybe top GMs like, I don't know, Hikaru Nakamura or maybe Magnus Carlsen, really the top 10 GMs could find this move. It's a very interesting idea here that was played by Stockfish. So as I said, take your time and think about this position a little bit longer. Okay, here Stockfish noticed the problem of the tension here around the square e5. This square is taken by the knight, this square is taken by the pawn, so that's why Stockfish is saying now I will try somehow to deflect your knight from the square e5, and Stockfish played now brilliant b4, sacrifices simply the pawn here on the queen side, because Stockfish is saying okay, you can get your pawn on the queen side, but actually the game is coordinated towards the king side. This here on this side I think there are more threats, so that's why Stockfish after b4, a takes b4 now played finally f takes e5. We have d takes e5, rook to b1 attacking the knight. Knight is protected. a3, pretty really I would say forced line that black has to play now. Knight to c6, of course, by Altair, and now comes another brilliant idea here by Stockfish. That was all calculated by the fish. The fish played now the beautiful d4. Sacrificed the pawn already, sacrifices now another one, but Altair has now huge positional but also tactical problems now in the middle game stage. So what should black do? In the game, bishop to a7 has been played by Altair, but let's see, of course, what happens if you play now e takes d4. Then you play c5, you kick away the bishop anyway, and now after the bishop to a7, now you play a stunning knight to f6. That was now Stockfish's mean plan. Altair so far didn't fall for this, but this was really an epic idea. Let's see what happens now if you play g takes f6. Now the queen is coming, you have to protect now the knight. Now you play something like e takes d4, you attack the knight further, the knight retreats, you play bishop to e4. Look at this, white would simply continue the attacking flow. There is now this problem around the square h7, you have to play h6, now the knight is coming. Look at this, very intense attack here by Stockfish. It would have been if Altair would have played this line. Here for bishop to f5, bishop to f5, queen has to stay now connected to the g6 square. You see now why, because after rook to f4, the rook lift, and rook to g4, the threat, you could maybe get the knight into the game, and now you have to see, as I said, you have to play queen to e8 in order to somehow cover further the g6 square. But now white continues with bishop to d2, prepares now rook to e1. Look at this. Rook to dx, rook to e1, you can cover maybe, but then you lose here the battle. So it's simply too much pressure here to handle after potential knight to f6 and g takes f6. So after knight to f6 in this imaginary position, you could maybe try here, I don't know, to play king to h8 to get out of this mess. But then again, the queen is coming again with the idea to somehow attack further the knight. There's simply too much pressure. You could maybe try bishop to g4 to somehow get the piece back, but knight to g4, queen to g4, here queen to g4, knight to g4. Now bishop to c6 is, I think, strategically winning the game here for white, because after b takes c6 and e takes d4, the knight is simply locked out now through the whole game. Look at this bishop would be paralyzed. It's simply out of game. Maybe you can try, I don't know, to get the knight back. White will also play knight to f3, protects now this pawn. And as I said, I think strategically this is a position that black could resign after a couple more moves. There's simply no good way to take out this pawn, and this bishop is always, as I said, simply neutralized. So that's why after move d4, I think we have cleared now this position that you cannot take now with e takes d4 in the center of the board. So that's why bishop to a7 by Altair. We have d5 by the fish to fork, but nothing is lost because Altair has this beautiful intermediate attack against the queen. We have queen to c2, knight to e7, and now comes another brilliant move here by the fish. Maybe just for fun, again, try to be progressive here, pause the video and try to see now again the best continuation here for white. I think it's sort of a must-see idea. If you don't play this move, black could get back into the game. Black could have now an equal position. This is, I think, a very important moment also now in this game. What would you do now here with the white pieces? Okay. Stockfish played here beautiful c5. Although it seems so that you're losing the pawn on d5, this one is stunning because now you get this one, knight to g5, checkmate threat on h7, and the knight is hanging on d5. You can maybe try, of course, to retreat, knight to f6 and so much stuff, but we simply sack the rook and again deliver checkmate on h7. So that's why after c5, here we have queen to d8, knight to f2, hitting the bishop. We have now bishop to c8 and now a4. Again, you cannot take knight to d5, it's not working. Rook to d1, you protect, but e4 again simply traps the piece, so this is not working. After move a4, knight to g6, played by Altair, knight takes g6, we have h takes g6, and you could say now, dude, where's the compensation? Stockfish has lost a pawn. Stockfish has now 6 pawns, Altair has still 7 pawns on the board, but Stockfish has this very important space advantage in the center of the board, has now these 2 mobile pawns that are very restricting black's ability to play in the center of the board. Altair, after queen to c3 by the fish, simply protected now the pawn on e5, and after bishop to a3 continued, of course, with king to h7. You have to get all the potential maybe light square attack. Altair is, of course, trying to do something here with the move f5. Tries, of course, to let the pawns roll here on the king side. So we have now rook from f to d1. We have now f5, rook to b3. Very important move. You see how important this move is for the later state of the game. But this is really, as I've always mentioned, this signature move by Stockfish. Stockfish always plays this beautiful rook lifts. Not only that this rook is protecting only the third rank, this rook will be eventually included into the attack here against Black's king on the h file. So we have now knight to f7. Altair is preparing, of course, to play something like, I don't know, g5, maybe g4, f4. So really desperate try to play counterattacks here on the king side. So now Stockfish continues with e4. Forces basically a reaction now by black, because if you play here f takes e4, then knight to bishop to e4 is coming, queen to d3, hitting simply the weakness on g6. So although you are up a pawn, but look at this, e5 was weak, g6 is weak, so too many again positional problems here for black. So after move e4, that's why f4 by Altair. We have king to h1, good improvement of the king. And what should you do? If you try here g5 to support further your pawn storm here on the king side, then white continues simply with queen to f3, not allowing here the move g4. You can maybe try it on knight to h6, but now you takes, and now after bishop to h3, bishop takes h3, knight to h3, again we would stop simply the potential progress of blacks here. You can maybe try g5, but now the queen is coming, and I think after a couple more moves, the position could collapse here around the score g5. Rook would come on the g file. This bishop is out of game in some lines. If you try this one, maybe this one is rolling. So this bishop on a3 is, of course, much more active than the bishop on a7. And still you have kept your very important positional here setup of your pawns. Very nice central control with this beautiful advanced pawns here on the queen side, but also in the center of the board. So that's why after king to h1, queen to f6, Altair is trying somehow to support this move g5, this potential g5 that could maybe cause some problems in white's position. But Stockfish continues, of course, with queen to c2, protects simply the light squares all over the board, especially the g4 square. Now we have g5, g takes f4, and if you take again with the g pawn, okay, maybe this structure is a little bit healthier, but again, this idea would come. Bishop to h3, and now the rook is coming. That was the beauty about this move, rook to b3 in the first place. Now, as I said, the rook is not only protecting the third rank, now the rook becomes actually the best piece on the board. You're trying something like king to g8, you include this other rook into the game, g5, look at this, rook to h5, white would simply continue the attacking flow, king to g7, you attack simply further this piece, you can even sack the rook. Look at this, how crazy maybe in some lines this position can be. You just open the position, you try, I don't know, rook to h3, queen is coming, you're trying this one, then you lose the queen. So of course black doesn't have to play the game like this, but I'm showing you this line even after g takes f4, the potential g5 move. I'm showing you this line because I wanted to show you that actually white cannot be really challenged by black on the king side with this g5 potential g4 move, because black's king is also too exposed here. So that's why I think this is really a brilliant game here by Stockfish. Not only when it comes to attacks, I think also when it comes to defenses, Stockfish neutralize the potential threats by black here on the king side. So after g takes f4, that's why e takes f4. But this move again somehow makes this pawn on the e4 on the e file mobile. Now Stockfish is searching for a move like e5 to happen. E5 would then simply connect 3 pawns in the center of the board. So let's see now how Stockfish did it, how Stockfish managed to push through the pawn on e5. So we have now bishop to f3. First of all, defensive ideas, controlling the g4 move. If that happens, if black manages somehow to play the move g4, then it could be also very dangerous here for white. So king to g8, we have bishop to h5, queen to h6, queen to e2, we have rook to f8, and now beautiful move here by the fish, knight to g4. You cannot take because of this idea, the fork against the queen and the king, and also of course discovered attack against the queen. The game is over here for black. So that's why after knight to g4 we have queen to h7, rook to f1, and now after bishop to d7, e5. Finally, that was the move that Stockfish wanted to play, although here Altair takes another pawn, but who cares? We have now these three runners, these three really mobile pawns, very hard to handle them. Now e6 is going to happen, d6 maybe, whatever the position is allowing you, but this move is simply destroying now black's position. g6 is of course not possible because you get knight to f6 and you get the fork. So here, after bishop to a4, rook to h3, again this idea, the queen is a little bit exposed, queen to f5 has to be played, and now queen to g2. What should you do? If you play here knight to e5, seems again tempting, but you see how many times Stockfish played a trap on Altair here. After knight to e5, you get this one, bishop to b2, you have to retreat, bishop to g6. Look at this, in some lines you can get even checkmated with a beautiful rook sacrifice, so this is not working. So after queen to g2, here Altair tried now rook to e8, but Stockfish continues of course with the move e6, and now Altair had to, I think, sacrifice the rook here because this is simply too much to handle. Knight doesn't have good squares at all. If you move it, then this is hanging, so knight to e5 again with bishop to g6 is working, so simply too much pressure here to handle for black. After e6 we have rook takes e6, d takes e6, queen to e6, knight to f2, we have bishop to b5, rook to b1 attacking the piece, bishop to c6, but of course bishop to f3 again solves all of the positional problems here for white. Bishop takes f3, rook to f3, again you cannot play g4. That's the beauty about this very nice blockade, very blocking system here by white. So after move rook to f3, we have rook to d8, rook to b3, b6, and now Stockfish simplifies the game, simply trade off the queens. Now the position is not so dangerous anymore, the king is not so in danger, so from this point on of course it's game over here for black. We have rook to d4, Stockfish retreats, bishop to b8, rook to d1, a new simple idea to trade off more pieces, knight to d5, rook to e4, and now rook to b1, king to h7, again simplifying the game. Good moves here by the fish. B takes c5, bishop takes c5, d6, and now the knight is simply attacking the pawn on c6. Stockfish attacks the bishop, again attacks the bishop, the knight is hanging, but now also this knight is hanging. Altair is trying to battle, Stockfish simply takes the pawn, Altair takes the bishop, and again here knight takes d4, obviously game over here for black. King to g6, h3, Stockfish goes for this pawn, includes now simply the knight into the game. It's very easy now to play the game. Okay, Altair is of course trying to battle, but now also this pawn is lost. We have king to g5, Stockfish gets of course the king closer to the action, delivers a check, simply push the pawn, push the king further, gets of course closer with all of these pieces into the attack, again moves the king further, now attacks simply the piece, has to retreat here, bishop to f6, Stockfish delivers a new check, and after rook to h4, it was an amazing checkmate. The knight is covering now both of the squares. Game over here for black. So incredible game. I really like this game. Maybe this is not the usual Stockfish game that we are seeing many times with immortal queen sacrifice, but I really liked this idea b4 because I have maybe not reached the same position, but I've played a couple of times really the English Opening recently, and I never came up with this plan that actually b4 could work. As I said, never had the same position, but similar really, where maybe even this b4 idea could work, but then you have to know this follow-up rook to b1, a3, and now d4. I'm not sure how many of us would dare to play now this move d4. You have to now be really a tactical monster in order to somehow see everything, especially this potential knight to f6 move later we saw was devastating. It has not been played in the game, but a very important follow-up that you have to see. So in my opinion, a crazy game again here by Stockfish 16. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the English Opening. If you want to see more epic, sharp, tactical, but also beautiful positional games like this, check out our Come to Chess Games Play by Computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.